All right, welcome in, everyone. Today, we are going deep, deep into the UK criminal justice system.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, and we're going to do that with this book, The Secret Barrister.
Ooh, good choice.
Yeah, so um, you had mentioned to me, maybe being interested in going into law as a barrister.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought this would be a good one to
Yeah, this will be.
kind of crack open and see what it's really like.
I think it'll be really eye-opening, especially compared to like all the TV shows and stuff, like
Totally, yeah. It's
yeah,
it's not Silk, it's not Suits.
exactly.
One of the things I thought was really interesting right off the bat, like right in the introduction,
Yeah.
the author talks about, the financial realities of this job.
Oh yeah.
And they mention a case where they earned like 50 quid
Oh wow.
for 3 days of work.
Oh my gosh.
That's less than minimum wage.
That's rough.
It is. It's really rough. And I think that's kind of the point the author's getting at, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it definitely highlights that like a lot of people in this line of work are driven by like passion.
Right. It's not about the money.
Not about them. Yeah, like you really have to want to do this.
Yeah. And I thought that was an interesting point. It's like kind of like social work or teaching in some ways,
Absolutely.
where the rewards are more intrinsic than financial,
Definitely.
like initially, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But let's get into some of the meatier stuff here.
Okay.
So, we often hear this narrative about the UK justice system being soft.
Right.
Um, and this book kind of takes that head on and says, hold on a second.
It does, yeah. It gives a lot of good examples that really go against that narrative.
Yeah, like the homeless man who gets 6 months in prison for stealing a chocolate bar.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Meanwhile, you have these corporate execs, right, committing financial fraud,
Mm-hmm.
getting off with a slap in the wrist.
Yeah, just a fine, like nothing.
So what's the deal with that disparity?
Well, the book kind of looks into why that is, and it's not really because the judges are biased or anything like that. It really comes down to resources.
Resources like money.
Yeah, like if you have money, you can afford a really good lawyer who
Okay.
can like get you off, basically.
Oh, so it's almost like justice has a price tag.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the time it does.
That's unsettling.
It is.
And it kind of ties into that bigger issue of socioeconomic inequality, right?
Absolutely. It affects so many parts of our lives, and the justice system is definitely one of them.
For sure. And that leads us to another topic the book delves into, which is wrongful convictions.
Yeah. That was a heavy part of the book.
Really heavy stuff.
Some really tough stories in there.
Yeah, the one that really stuck with me was the story of Sam Hallam.
Oh, gosh.
7 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit.
Just, it's awful.
It's awful, and it makes you question,
Yeah.
we think of the justice system as being this infallible thing.
Right. Like, it'll always get it right.
But then you read stories like this, and you're like,
And it makes you wonder, like, how often does this happen?
right.
That we don't hear about.
Exactly. And what's interesting is the book doesn't just focus on the UK.
Right.
It draws a parallel
Yes.
to the U.S. case of Carlos de Luna,
Right. Who was actually executed.
executed for a crime
For a crime he didn't commit.
he didn't commit.
Really, really sad.
It's chilling, and it really makes you realize that this isn't just a UK issue.
No,
It's a human issue,
it's a worldwide issue.
right? And it kind of forces us to confront this uncomfortable reality that,
Yeah.
the justice system, for all its safeguards,
Mm-hmm.
is still susceptible to human error.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's people who are running the system.
Right. And the consequences of those errors are devastating.
Absolutely devastating.
So, I mean, it makes you wonder, like, what kind of safeguards do we have in place, and are they really enough?
Yeah, are they enough to actually prevent these miscarriages of justice?
Right. What do you think?
Well, that's a complex question, and the book suggests that.
I mean, it's a tough one, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about these wrongful convictions, it makes the whole issue of legal aid even more important.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, how can anyone expect to have a fair trial if they can't even afford a lawyer?
It's almost impossible. And the book actually goes into the history of legal aid in the UK, you know?
Yeah, it was meant to be this thing where everyone,
Right.
like, regardless of how much money they had,
Mm-hmm.
could get good legal representation.
Right, that was the idea.
Yeah, but then over the years, there have been all these cuts.
Yeah, and the book doesn't sugarcoat it.
No.
It shows what happens when you cut legal aid.
Yeah, there's this one story, I think about it all the time. It's about this guy,
Yeah.
accused of assault, couldn't afford a lawyer,
Oh, man.
so he had to represent himself.
Oh, wow.
And the poor guy, like, totally overwhelmed by the legal system,
Yeah.
and he ended up getting convicted even though he was innocent.
It's heartbreaking,
Yeah, it's really sad.
And it makes you realize how crucial legal aid is.
Especially when you're up against a system that's so complicated.
Right, exactly. It's like, you're already at a disadvantage if you don't have the resources to navigate this stuff.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
It's almost like it's designed to keep people down.
In a way, yeah, it can feel like that.
And, I don't know about you, but I've definitely had my own experiences with bureaucracy and like just feeling totally powerless.
Oh, yeah, totally.
When you're up against like a system that's just
right. It's like you're just banging your head against a wall.
yeah, exactly. And it's so frustrating.
Yeah, and I think that's what the book really gets at with this legal aid thing. It's like we need a system that actually works for everyone.
Right. It's about leveling the playing field.
Exactly.
So that everyone has a fighting chance,
Yeah, that's the goal.
But let's shift gears a little bit here.
Okay.
So, the book doesn't just focus on these big systemic issues. It also gives you a glimpse into like the emotional side.
Oh, yeah, the human side of it all.
Yeah, of being a barrister.
Yeah, it's a really tough job.
It is. It's really demanding. And the book doesn't shy away from that.
No, it paints a pretty honest picture.
Right, like the long hours, the emotional toll of seeing all this injustice.
You're dealing with people's lives. It's a big responsibility.
It is, and it's heavy stuff, but there are these moments, these glimmers of hope.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Where justice actually prevails.
Like that story about the single mother.
Oh, yeah.
Who was falsely accused of shoplifting.
And the barrister, really fought for her.
And proved her innocence.
Yeah, and saved her from losing her job, her home.
It's a good reminder that even though the system has all these problems, you can still make a difference.
Right. It's like even within this flawed system, there are individuals who are doing good work.
Exactly. And they're fighting for what's right.
And it makes you think about like what qualities are needed to do this kind of work,
Oh, yeah, like resilience for sure.
Yeah, you have to be tough.
Yeah, you're going to have a thick skin.
You have to be able to compartmentalize.
So you also have to be passionate about what you do.
Yeah, you have to really believe in it.
Because otherwise it'll eat you up.
Yeah, and those are actually skills that are transferable to any job, right?
That totally, like dedication, critical thinking.
Empathy. Like being able to understand other people's perspectives.
Yeah, those are all valuable skills.
So, for someone like our listener who's thinking about becoming a barrister.
Right.
What's the key takeaway here?
I think the book does a really good job of showing both sides.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't shy away from the tough stuff, but it also shows how rewarding it can be.
It's not all doom and gloom.
No, there's definitely hope.
It's about going in with your eyes open,
For sure.
Understanding the realities, but also holding on to that spark of hope.
Absolutely. Like believing that you can actually make a difference.
And I think that's what makes this book so interesting. It's not just about being a lawyer.
Yeah.
It's about being a good citizen, being aware of these issues.
And being willing to speak up,
Yeah, to fight for what's right.
To fight for change.
So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's really important that the book makes us think about our own role in all of this.
Yeah.
Like justice isn't something that just happens.
Right.
It's something that we have to actively participate in.
So it's not just about the lawyers, it's about everyone.
Exactly. We all have a part to play.
And I think that's one of the most powerful messages of this book.
For sure.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to go back to something that really stuck with me.
Okay.
It's the emotional roller coaster that comes with this job, right?
Yeah, it's tough.
You're constantly seeing injustice, the failings of the system. It's a lot to bear.
It is. It can be really heavy.
But the book also shows how resilient these barristers are.
Yeah, they're amazing.
They're able to find hope and meaning even in the darkest of places.
It's like they have this superpower.
Yeah, it's like a shield against despair.
Right, and it comes from their belief in what they're doing.
Yeah, their commitment to justice.
Exactly, and that's what I find so inspiring.
Me too. It's like even when things are really tough, we still have the power to make a positive impact.
Yeah, and it's about finding that fire within yourself.
That belief that what you're doing matters.
Yeah, even when it feels like you're fighting an uphill battle.
And the book really highlights that.
It does, and it reminds us that fighting for justice,
yeah,
it's not just a job, it's a calling.
It's a commitment to making the world a better place.
One step at a time.
And on that note, I think it's time to. So I guess we're at the point where we start to wrap up our deep dive here.
Yeah, I feel like we just scratched the surface.
I know, right? This book is, there's so much in here.
It's packed.
Yeah.
But it's been a good journey, right? Like we've talked about.
All sorts of stuff, like debunking those myths about the UK justice system.
Right, and seeing how it actually works or doesn't work, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and I think one of the things that really hit home for me
Yeah.
was just how the book manages to balance,
Mm.
you know, those hard truths, those
Right, the
realities.
dark side of it.
Yeah, with this sense of hope.
Right, like there's still good people fighting the good fight.
Exactly, like you see these barristers, these individuals
Yeah.
who are just like tirelessly fighting
Mm-hmm.
against a system that often seems like it's rigged against them.
Totally.
And yet they just keep going, and it's like
It's inspiring.
it is inspiring.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about like, well, what is it? What is it that drives them?
Right, like what keeps them going?
And I think it's that passion for justice, right?
Yeah, that belief that things can be better.
That things can change.
Exactly.
And that's what I find so remarkable, that resilience.
Yeah, they don't give up.
They don't give up. And it's not just about individual strength either, right?
No, it's about working together.
Yeah, the book makes a really good point about,
Like collective action.
yeah, collective
Like
action.
we need to support each other
Exactly.
if we want to actually make a difference.
So it's like, okay, we've identified the problems, right? We've talked about the flaws in the system, but like, now what?
What can we do about it?
What can we do about it? And the good thing is this book doesn't just leave you hanging.
No, it actually gives you some ideas.
Yeah, like it offers a way forward.
Like concrete things you can do.
So what are some of those things?
Well, advocating for legal aid reform.
Okay.
Supporting organizations that are fighting for the wrongly convicted.
Right.
Just raising awareness about these issues.
Yeah, just getting people talking.
Exactly, because the more people who know about this stuff, the better.
And it really is about recognizing that, like, we all have a role to play here.
Yeah. It's not just the lawyer's responsibility.
Right, like creating a more just and equitable society. That's all of us.
It's a team effort.
So for our listener out there who, maybe is thinking about becoming a barrister,
Yeah.
I feel like this book is essential reading.
Oh, for sure. It should be required reading.
Like a guidebook, right?
Yeah, a guide to the real world of criminal justice.
It's not sugarcoating anything.
It's straight up.
It's real. It's raw.
This is what it's like.
And I think that's so important, right?
Yeah, to go in with your eyes open.
Exactly. Like, know what you're getting into.
But also know that you can make a difference.
And I think, one of the key takeaways here is that it's not just about the legal knowledge.
No.
It's about that commitment, that fire in your belly.
That passion for justice.
The ability to persevere even when things are tough.
To never give up.
Because you really believe in what you're doing.
And to remember that every case, every client,
Yeah.
it's a real person with a real story.
About people.
Yeah. And you have the power to help them.
That's a pretty powerful thing.
It is. It's a big responsibility.
So I guess as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from all of this?
I hope they come away with a better understanding of how complex the UK justice system really is.
Yeah.
And how important it is to fight for what's right.
To fight for fairness,
Yeah.
to fight for equality.
Exactly.
And maybe even a little bit of inspiration.
Yeah, to get involved.
To get involved, to make a difference, whether that's
To be part of the solution.
as a lawyer or just as an engaged citizen.
Because, like the book says, the system may be broken, but you can be part of fixing it.
And on that note, I think we'll leave it there.
Sounds good.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.